G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you're having a fantastic day, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and let's get right into it. Posted by a deleted account, titled, My 22 female, boyfriend, 24 male, cheated on me whilst high on acid because he thought that it was me. So my partner and I joined our friends on a beach trip to try acid for the first time. There were only 5 of us, 2 boys and 3 girls, 2 couples, 1 extra girl. We took acid while there was still sunlight because apparently it takes ages to take effect, and we spent this time drinking beer near our tents with a campfire going on. Mind you, as we were descending into tripping balls on acid, we were also getting quite drunk. I'm very lightweight, so I didn't have much to drink. My partner, on the other hand, had plenty. When it started to kick, it was fun, it was funny. I felt like the sand was grassy, and I kept hearing Billie Eilish singing in my ear when really it was the wind blowing so hard that it was whistling. This is where it goes downhill. Maybe like 4 to 5 hours later, I decided to go on a walk and had 2 friends join me because I couldn't go to sleep. My partner wanted to stay in our tent because he wasn't feeling well, so I said sure. Our other male friend, who was coming to walk with me, told his girlfriend to stay with my boyfriend so she could look after him in case anything goes wrong. We thought that all was well until we got back. When we returned, the first thing I heard was just obnoxious moaning and breathing. Me and the others panicked, so we immediately went into my boyfriend's tent, and lo and behold, both naked, someone's girlfriend on top of my boyfriend. I ended up vomiting and passing out on the shore, but I heard a lot of yelling and crying. I woke up being in my tent and saw my boyfriend sleeping next to me. Honestly, I had to really think whether I hallucinated him cheating or that it really happened. Our other friend's girlfriend had apparently left during the night without letting any of us know, so there were only 4 of us. My partner's excuse was that he genuinely thought that the girl was me. The smell, the eyes, the hair. When I realized it was all real, I just cried and had been crying since. I've never felt so broken, betrayed, confused, and hurt at the same time. I want to make excuses for him and think that maybe it was just a mistake, but he full-on cheated. 4 years down the drain, just like that. I'd been staying at my sister's since we got back, but he hasn't stopped texting and calling me to apologize and say that he's disgusted in himself and that he genuinely thought that it was me. I haven't spoken to him since, but I am so tempted to. I miss him, but I'm just so hurt. I'm so confused. Should I break up with him for it? Edit. He had been planning to propose to me for a month. He apparently made a custom order of an engagement ring to suit what I specifically liked. I told him he can forget about proposing as he'd effed up big time. For context, the night that it happened, he said that it was so dark in the tent he could barely see anything and that the only light source was the campfire behind the tent. He wasn't wrong on that part, but surely you could feel and hear the difference. The girl had a deeper voice than I did and smelled entirely different from me. We have different perfumes, and she was blonde. I dyed my hair straight ginger. Dropping the proposal bomb on me just left me all the more confused and torn. How am I supposed to break up with him when he had been planning this all along? I feel like the asshole now, even though I know I'm not. He knows I'd been waiting for him to propose for over a year now. In the comments, Impossible Disc says, obligatory dropped tons of acid, blah blah, tripping balls with an ex in my early 20s, and my then girlfriend morphed into her dad while we were amorous. Horrendous stuff. I believe this could happen in the dark quite easily, and genuinely am perturbed at the folks claiming to be acid experts claiming it can't. I also think the points about sexual assault are valid and concerning. For sure, and for someone who always errs on the side of he cheated, good lie though, I'm finding it very difficult to fault your Schrodinger's boyfriend. I'm sorry this happened to you both, and I hope you both find a path to happiness, with or without each other. But please let us know what happens when you let him out of the box. Yeah, it's crazy how a lot of people are saying he couldn't confuse the girl for the girlfriend while tripping. First time I took acid, I thought there was a fish in the wall of my room, and I couldn't sleep thinking the fish would die, because how can he survive outside of the water? The room was pitch black, and I definitely couldn't see anything. I was just convinced that the fish was there. Also, I thought the floor was made of glitter, and my then girlfriend was a literal goddess, like flying and shit. Although it sounds like fun, you guys are further solidifying my decision to never do acid. I was over on the bench says, if he was staying back in the tent because he was so drunk and high and sick, are we sure that the girl didn't assault him? Especially since she bolted afterwards and hasn't spoken to anyone since. It kinda sounds like he might not have been able to consent. He might have been SA'd. I hadn't thought about it this way. This is a lot more horrifying. Oh my. I've done a ton of acid before where I was literally making out with my boyfriend and started freaking out thinking he was someone else. I was looking at him and seeing a different face. I started crying and apologizing and saying I had a partner. So yeah, I honestly do believe this could happen. Yup, my boyfriend and I were hooking up while we were tripping once, and he freaked out because he thought that I was someone else and he was cheating on me. To be fair, I went to look in the mirror to make sure I was myself, and I wasn't sure either. Edit, I'm very glad people are entertained by this. It's hilarious in retrospect for sure. I told my boyfriend that I posted this and he was like, yeah, I freaked out until I saw your tattoo, which is why I kept saying, okay, tattoo, which I'd completely forgotten, Lamau. Let me get this straight. He was hammered and on drugs and went to your and his tent because he wasn't feeling well, probably to pass out. Some girl was asked to keep an eye on him. She crawled into the tent and started doing stuff to him. Some of these comments are a bit off. I can guarantee you, if it was a super high and drunk woman in her tent and some guy crawled into it, the conversation would be super different. Not to mention, she had nothing to drink. So yes, everyone was high on acid, but she wasn't hammered off of booze. She knew what she was doing. I'm not sure if the boyfriend did. Why would he expect anyone else but his girlfriend to be in the tent, especially if being woken from a drunken and high state? Update. So much has happened in the past hour. Our friend was able to get in touch with the girl who was caught with my partner because he went to the girl's house and no one ended up being there. I'll try to break it down as best as I can. Starting with my partner, whom called off work to come to me so we could sit down and talk about it once and for all. I asked if he could possibly leave work early, as I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. Anyway, from his perspective, while being in the tent alone, he couldn't tell whether he was asleep or not. He thinks his eyes were open, but it wouldn't make a difference whether he blinked or stared into the abyss. He said he was really dizzy, but really hyper, but then also really tired, and that all these feelings made him nauseous, but not to the point where he needed to throw up, just enough for him to feel the need to lie down and relax. He said he heard the tent open, but he didn't react because he naturally thought that it was me. He said, "You going to bed?" As the girl he thought was me just plummeted herself onto the sheet next to him. He couldn't recall whether he had heard a response, but he said he felt a kiss on his arm. He went in to spoon her and say goodnight until he felt a kiss on the lips. He kissed back, and it progressed from there. He said he consented with his body as he thought it was me, but not because he was hallucinating, but because he couldn't see anything. He had his eyes closed most of the time because he couldn't see anyways, apparently. Then they got naked, and she straddled him. They didn't have intercourse, but instead were dry humping naked. He said he couldn't even feel anything, as if no one was on top of him. Then the tents were ripped open, and he thought that it was just her closing it behind her, but it was us. Then he saw us and got really confused. This was when he thought that maybe he was hallucinating, hence the no reaction. He thought that there was no way he could see me outside the tent when I was straddling him naked. Then the guy started yelling, the girl got off him, and he went out of the tent naked. He said he forgot he was naked and got so confused as to what was happening. Then he saw me vomit and then pass out. The whole time our guy friend was yelling at him. He carried me back into the tent and stared at me for a good minute. He looked at our friend yelling and asking if this was real. Then he realized it was, and that's when he started getting agitated, stressed, and started crying because he realized he just cheated on me. Then the girl disappeared, and they didn't notice until the guy stopped yelling to ask the girl what she was doing being on top of him. He told me that the girl never spoke, only moaned. He thought that it was me as we had a similar hair length and was confusing her eyes for mine whenever he caught a glimpse of light on her. I gave him a hug when he finished explaining. We were both crying at this point, and still are. I asked him if he needs help reporting this girl to the police, and he said no. He said that he thinks that she confused him for her partner too, and I said there's absolutely no way that happened when she could see her boyfriend across the shore walking with me. He said that he didn't feel assaulted because he was reacting to it with the same energy, but that it was definitely weird finding out that it wasn't me in the end. Still, I urged him to think about it carefully, but offered my support because I know how disgusting and weird it is to even think that we'd get taken advantage by the same people we trusted, but that it needs to be addressed. He said he'll think about it. I said my side and how I saw it, then we sat in silence for a while and ended up talking about the good moments that happened that night. We were both relieved that we talked about it, and it genuinely felt like he was telling the truth. I've known the man for 5 years. He physically cannot lie. He said he understands why I thought he cheated, because he also thinks he cheated. He brought up the proposal because he was terrified of losing me, but admitted to the bad timing of it. I shared my own guilt and apologized for leaving him in the hands of someone else, for allowing it to go that far, for everything. Now he's taking a shower and going back to work after, and I'm shaking as I'm typing this. As for the girl, buckle the F up. We finally heard from her from our guy friend, and apparently she's been MIA because she was in the effing hospital. She got her phone taken away by her mum. Our friend went to the girl's house because he was sick of waiting for a response and no one ended up being home. He then got the mum's number from a neighbor that they were close with and called her, and then was able to speak to the girl. Effing weird if you ask me. Her own mum told our friend that she was home safe, but she'd been in the hospital the whole time. She said that she left because of how disgusted she felt when she realized what she had done. She said she just wanted to lie down, but confused our tent to be theirs. They were all the same color. When she heard my partner say, "You going to bed," she said that she thought he said, "No sex?" and immediately heard her boyfriend's voice instead of mine, as in, confused my boyfriend's voice to be her boyfriend's voice. So she initiated small kisses, and when he reciprocated, she was reassured that it was, indeed, her boyfriend. Completely forgotten about the fact that he was 20 footsteps away from her, completely forgotten that she was asked to watch my partner in case anything happens, and so when she realized what she had done, she left without saying anything and took an Uber home, then jumped out of the moving effing car because she thought the car wasn't moving and that the car wasn't moving because she was home. Ended up fracturing her arm, staying longer in the hospital for suicidal ideation, and getting infections. And I think she's being fined for endangering herself and others for being high on acid. She did end up saying that she accepts whatever happens to her, whether we report what happened or beat her up, etc. Our friend said that she sounded very remorseful and worried for all of us, especially my partner and I. She said herself that she thinks she took advantage of him because she was the one who had initiated it. We are waiting to hear more from him about her, and he's now on his way to visit her. A lot about this is still very unclear to us and doesn't add up. Needless to say, I am both relieved and horrified to have heard both parties' perspective. This has been such a big effing day. It doesn't feel real. We'll continue to work on this and may probably need therapy. The situation ended up being a lot bigger than me, and I feel that the only ones to blame were ourselves. We allowed this situation to happen, and it didn't matter if it was intentional or not. We were irresponsible and really stupid. We thought the beach was an awesome idea for the solitude, silence, and the view, but we didn't factor in the darkness and the consequences of drinking and taking acid at the same time. Hell, one of us could have even drowned despite the ground rules we put out and despite it being a low tide that night. It was really, really dumb and set up to fail from the very beginning. As for our relationship, we're coming to an agreement to have some space between us physically, as it felt like it would have been too soon to start sleeping in the same bed and to go get therapy together. We'll talk about it more after his shower. I'm going to continue to stay at my sister's, but I'll also be seeing him regularly to continue supporting each other. We're both still shaken up and quite traumatized from it all, but we're both willing to work it out. We've heard one another and decided to trust each other, and obviously created very heavy boundaries regarding drugs and alcohol. I'm not the type to develop trust issues, so I'm hoping healing from this will be easier than how everyone makes it out to be. For the people that have commented and shared their own experiences, thank you, especially to those who have challenged my perspective and called me out on my own shortcomings. excluding the ones who were flat out insensitive assholes, yolk and choke. I thank those who had given me sound advice, those who educated me, and those who had given us well wishes. I really, really appreciate the time you've invested into this. I'll answer questions, but I might delete this profile shortly after. Thanks, everyone. In the comments, Corduroy Clementine says, "Really dumb decision making here. Getting drunk right beforehand and mixing alcohol and acid, having no one be sober, apparently no plan if an emergency were to happen, while they were in a very secluded place. All of my worst trips included alcohol. At one point, I ended up trying to kick my friends who were just trying to help me because I was convinced that I'd died and gone to hell. I even straight up peed on my friend's carpet, thinking if I already was in hell, how could it get any worse? I don't know if they'll recover because that's not how trauma works, but I hope they can get past it. I can absolutely picture this scenario. I had to convince my best friend he wasn't dead. I was tripping too, so it was hard to deal with the nonsense, but I love the guy, so I stuck by him and talked him down. Everyone else ditched him because he kinda lost his mind and was killing their buzz. We're still friends decades later. I thought my friends were demons wearing my friend's skin to torture me. Science bless them, at least 6 of them were trying to help me. It was a big step in embracing atheism and getting over my fears of damnation, but there was probably an easier way. I was also shipping out to basic training in a month. It was meant to be a last hurrah of drugs. Honestly reminds me of my psychosis in solitary confinement in jail. I literally thought I was in hell and heard demons and that I would be tortured endlessly but not die. I was not on drugs. I'd been clean and sober for a while, but after that I gained so much more love of being in control of my thoughts and being clear-headed. Things have been good about 7 years for me, and sober 8.5. Our next post is by user SpringDeer333, titled, "Am I the asshole for joking about my husband in front of our work colleagues after he refused to socialize?" About a month ago, I, female 38, was promoted to a higher position at my job. I am now in a more senior position than my husband, male 41, at work. My husband has always told me how happy he was that I got the promotion, but sometimes I get the feeling that he's embarrassed that I'm technically his superior now. Last night, we had a work-related social event. It was supposed to be an opportunity to build team cohesion and that sort of thing. My husband didn't really want to go. He's pretty introverted. He also said he had a migraine and didn't want to make it worse. I told him that it'd be weird if he didn't come, and people might think that he's jealous of me getting the promotion. After some more persuasion, I was able to convince him to come along. When he got there, he greeted a few people, but ended up spending most of the time sitting in a corner on his own and only chatting with a few people at a time. Aside from that, the event was pretty good, and most of our co-workers were present. At some point, I was in a large group when Sarah, female 46, who had not yet seen my husband there, asked where he was and jokingly asked if he was as serious and mysterious at home as he was at work. I told them that he was the complete opposite at home. I said that while at work he seems organized, but at home he's a bit of a slob. I joked about how he always leaves his laundry all over the floor, and I mentioned things like how he complains too much about random trivial things like the neighbor's kids sometimes playing on our lawn. I also mentioned how he has a fear of heights and how he was shaking the entire time when he crossed a rope bridge during our honeymoon. I did say a few other things like how sometimes I feel like I'm his parent. Everyone was interested and surprised to hear all of this, and we did share many laughs together. At some point, my husband walked into the conversation and quickly pieced together what we were talking about. The rest of the conversation was awkward after that. On the drive home, my husband was not speaking. When I asked him if everything was all right, he said that I surprised him. I was annoyed by him being vague, so I told him that I knew that he wasn't feeling 100%, but that he was acting childish for not socializing and acting offended. He said that it was childish and rude that I was sharing his personal details with our colleagues. I then told him that he was blowing things out of proportion, but he didn't respond, and the rest of the ride was silent. When we got home, we argued again about the night's events. My husband said my behavior was appalling and that he questioned if I had any respect for him. I was angry by his outburst, so I told him that he was only being sensitive because I was technically his superior now, and that was what was really bothering him. The argument ended there, as my husband didn't want to waste any more time and went to bed. This morning, I texted my younger sister what happened, and she accused me of being insensitive. Am I the asshole? I'm gonna go with yes. I don't think your husband did anything wrong, and you keep guessing what his motivations are here without getting the truth of how he feels from him. Being your husband, you would think that he would be transparent with you. You continually just keep shoving back in his face, oh, is it because you feel like I'm superior to you now? Damn, isn't it crazy that I'm like superior to you now? Do you think everyone's going to be judging you because I'm superior to you now? Oh, do you feel like less than and you're like not wanting to talk as much because I'm your superior now? Notice how that, coupled with the fact that you keep airing out all of his dirty laundry at home that doesn't need to be shared with everyone and now can be akin to bullying your husband, do you see how that makes him feel? I actually don't know how you write this whole post and think that you're still in the right. You're the asshole. In the comments, Morgaine125 says, Dear Lord, you're the asshole. It's bad enough that you mocked him and shared personal information about him to your work colleagues, but even worse that you mocked and shared personal information about him to his work colleagues. And you mocked and ridiculed one of your subordinates. Your behavior was completely unprofessional and disrespectful toward your marriage. Indeed. First, you project your take that Hubs must be feeling hurt, disappointed, embarrassed, emasculated by your new post-promotion, superior role, and then you demean him by making negative comments about him to coworkers. Haha, so funny. Let me attack my spouse under the guise of sharing witty anecdotes. You're the asshole big time. Don't be surprised when introverted Hubs files for divorce. You're insufferable. FYI that your little performance at Hub's expense may also cost you dearly at work. As a colleague, I'd be appalled by your cruelty and would not trust you moving forward. As a manager, I'd call you in with HR the next workday to address your attempted humiliation of another employee, marital status irrelevant. You get an F in team building. Seriously? You're senior enough to have been promoted, but you don't understand the basics of professional behavior. Of course you're the asshole. To be frank, the vibe I get is that maybe you shouldn't have been promoted. You don't sound mature enough to understand or supervise people. I hope I'm wrong, but I foresee a lot of drama in your team. If it turns out that you're not up to the responsibility, then you could get a bad reputation and find it hard to move on to another position. It was completely fine for your husband to focus on talking to just a few people. He attended the event, and it's fine and normal that he didn't want to spend his free time at a work event. Do you really not get that people have different styles as far as interacting with others goes? I feel sorry for the people that you're in charge of now. As for the personal comments, it's hard to know what to say. Are you actually confused about what's appropriate personal information to share about your spouse? Or are you looking to make excuses after you chose to run your husband down to make yourself look better? Also, it's weird that you keep talking about being his superior. You mention it over and over, both to us and to him. The problem is not him, it's that you're immature and have no idea how to behave or treat people. Update. I'll start this post off firstly by saying I was completely in the wrong. There is zero excuses for how I treated my husband that night at the work social. He is, without a doubt, the personification of a perfect husband. Honestly, at times, I find myself wondering if he's too good for me. He's the kindest person I know. He's incredibly supportive of me in every way. He's funny, he's very intelligent, easy to talk to, and yes, he's also very good looking. I feel heartbroken about the things I said, especially about the fear of heights thing. My husband only bothered overcoming it and crossing that rope bridge for my sake after all. After reading the comments I received and doing extensive self-reflection, I profusely apologized to my husband, and I told him that I do love him and respect him. I apologized for not only the things I said that night, but also for my general behavior since I got my promotion and my accusations of him being jealous. Being him, he accepted my apology immediately, and even said that he had already forgiven me because he considered my actions to be a mistake rather than intentional. He then actually apologized as well because he thought that he had spoken out of anger and escalated the situation when we got home. Since then, I've been trying my best to be worthy of him. He told me that we should let the whole thing be in the past, but I think I always cringe when I think back to that night and the time leading up to it. Things at work have also been pretty smooth. My husband doesn't mind going in and chatting with our colleagues. Yesterday, he, in fact, expanded on the rope bridge story with one of our colleagues, so I think he's comfortable. Now, I'm just really hoping that I can be as good a spouse as he is. In the comments, Bendy Biznatch says, I'm kinda speechless at the amount of grace that your husband has, but don't assume he's not still deeply wounded. Some things can't be taken back. OP says, he's truly an amazing guy who I'm incredibly lucky to have. I hope you continue to realize this. Good luck to you both. Time heals all wounds. This update feels like one of those shitty YouTube apologies. How you acted in the original post just makes this update feel like you're trying to save face. It's all about image with this one. Hers didn't go over well for the first time around, and now she's in damage control. Damn, one promotion and the power went straight to OP's head? Yikes. Dude is an actual saint for forgiving her so easily, even going as far as to needlessly apologize. OP wondering if he's too good for her is the realest thing she's said in her posts. Maybe I'm too prideful, but I wouldn't have forgiven her. Yeah, as someone with a paralyzing fear of heights, I'd be mortified. The absolute disrespect would be pretty hard to come back from. Never mind the fear of heights, the part where she said she feels like his parent, that would have been my limit. I absolutely believe that many feel that way about their husband. A lot of dudes are still spectacularly clueless, but it's not a cute or funny thing to say. If you genuinely feel that way, work on leaving, because that relationship is dead. If you don't feel that way, then don't joke about it. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.